Hey guys, this is Harry Dell, and I'm coming at you with another video here on Boxing Chat. As you can see in the title, we're going to focus on a specific topic, and that has to do with Floyd Mayweather and fighters that he never faced. Today we're going to focus on the lightweight division. Yesterday I did a video, part 1, that was focused on the super featherweight division, 130 pounds. And if you have not seen that video, go ahead and check it out. But today we're going to focus on the lightweight division. So let's go ahead and start with the first fighter I have here, and his name is Leonard Dorin. Leonard Dorin, let me just tell you a few things about him. He was a stalker type of boxer. That was his style. It was to come forward, but he didn't just come in and take a bunch of punches. He didn't go in, he didn't come in and take four to land one. He was a very intelligent pressure fighter, which made him very difficult to deal with. And a lot of these fighters, they couldn't handle his style. He was very smart when he come in, because he would close range really well. His defense, he had a high guard defense, and that would allow him to catch punches and land his own, catch and shoot. And that was a very effective technique he used. He had great counterpunching ability too. The thing about Dorin was that he wasn't the biggest fighter. He was only like 5'4", and he only had like 64-inch reach. But it didn't matter, because he had something that is very overlooked in boxing, and that is knowing how to close up the distance, knowing how to get in range, but not do it to where the other opponent sees you coming, but to do it where it's just so fast that once you're in range, you land your shots, bam, you're out of there. Or if the fighter doesn't respond, you're gonna stay in there and try to land as many blows as you can. And Dorin was very very good at that. He could close up the range very very quickly. It's like you didn't see him doing it. You would not notice him when he was doing it. He was, by the time you did notice he was too close, it was too late. He already landed punches on you, and his punches were, they weren't pity pat punches. He wasn't a devastating power puncher, but he would outwork you, and he would just keep coming. Like I said, he was a smart pressure fighter. What else did I notice about him? Oh yeah, also he had a very sneaky right hand. Very sneaky, guys. I'm telling you, the reason why it was so sneaky, first of all, he was very good at timing the opponent's shots, and he was very good at timing his own shots. And what I mean by that is, he knew exactly when he needed to throw it. He didn't waste punches. He did not waste punches. And the reason why his right hand was so sneaky is because he threw it different. He never threw it the same. He always changed it up. It was either overhand right, straight right, or he'll double it up. And that was one of his biggest weapons, was his timing, and also his ability to close the range and close the distance and get in range. Because like I said, he wasn't the biggest guy, but even though he was only 5'4", that allowed him to duck under punches, slip a lot of shots. Kind of hard to reach someone when they're kind of low. And once he was in, he was attacking your body, and he was attacking upstairs, back downstairs. He didn't stop coming. But let's go ahead and move on to the side by side stats comparisons between Dorin and Mayweather. As you can see in the very top, Leonard Dorin, he was the WBA lightweight champion from 2002 to 2003. Floyd Mayweather, he was the WBC lightweight champ from also the same time period, 2002 till 2003. Leonard Dorin, he made 2 title defenses. He was 1-0-1 with no knockouts. Floyd Mayweather, he had 3 title defenses, which he was 3-0 with 1 knockout. Now, the next stats These are the combined wins of the opponents in the opponents that they faced in these title defense, these title defenses. Because a lot of fighters, they defend their titles, multiple times, but against who? Quality opposition, bums. So I came up with these stats so you could see that they were fighting quality opponents. They weren't fighting guys that they just found on the street. So let's go ahead and start with on Leonard Dorin's side. His opponent's combined wins was 84. Combined losses 5, which equal to a 94% win ratio. Let's go to Floyd Mayweather's side. His opponent's combined wins 112 and losses 8. Only 8 losses. And that equal to 93% win ratio. Now remember, these numbers are only in the title defenses. These numbers are based on the fighters that both of these guys faced to defend their titles. So in these title defense fights, they face quality opposition. They didn't face laundromat workers. As you can see, the numbers are very similar: 94%, 93%. So both of these guys, they were not kicking back when it came to defending their titles. Now let's go on to Dorin's side. The first title defense he had was against the ex-champion at lightweight. He was actually the WBA champion, but Dorin defeated him in their match. And the first title defense was the rematch between him and Balbi. Raul Horacio Balbi was 48-5-1 with 38 knockouts coming into that fight. And also his second title defense was against another lightweight champion in Paul Spadafora, who was at the time 36-0 with 15 knockouts. So right off the bat, he was, he only had 2 title defenses, but these guys were quality, super high quality, opponents, world class opponents. Let's move over to Mayweather's side. His first title defense was also against the ex-champion, the ex-WBC lightweight champ, in Jose Luis Castillo. And of course, as you all know, Mayweather's first defense was a rematch with Castillo, who came into that fight 46-5-1 with 42 knockouts. Real quick, if you notice, Dorin and Mayweather, how their first title defenses were against the ex-champs. So that tells you that it was a very competitive, both of these guys were in very competitive matches to win the title. They didn't just beat some paper champ, they beat legitimate champions, and in a very close fight. All right, let's go on to the next guy. Second title defense for Mayweather was against Victoriano Souza, who was 35-2-2 with 26 knockouts. This was actually Souza's second shot at a title. He had previously, he had one attempt before against Paul Spadafora, who was the IBF champion. As you can see, he was the second defense of Dorin. If you look over to the Dorin side, Paul Spadafora is right there. He was the undefeated lightweight champ. Souza, faced him, and of course, he failed. And this was his second try, and he failed again. And he retired 2 years later. He never fought for a world title again, but he made 2 attempts. Let's move on to the next guy. Third title defense for Mayweather was Philip Ndu, who was 31-1 with 30 knockouts. He would not have another shot at a title again after that fight with Mayweather. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next stats, notable fights for each fighter. Notable fight for Leonard Dorin was, of course, Paul Spadafora, who was 36-0 with 15 knockouts, and that fight was to unify, to defend and unify his WBA and the IBF titles. But that fight ended in a draw. It was a very competitive match, and it ended in a draw. So both of those guys, they kept their titles. Let's move over to Mayweather's side. Most notable fight was against Jose Luis Castillo, who was 46-5-1 with 42 knockouts, and that fight was to defend his WBC title, which he won. He won that fight. Let's go ahead and move on to the last stat. Record as lightweight. Leonard Dorin was 21-0-1 with 7 knockouts. Mayweather was 31-0 with 21 knockouts. Now just a little extra stat. That's nothing to do with the pros, but it's kind of cool to see that they're very similar. Also, even in the amateurs, they both won bronze medals in the Olympics. Dorin won a bronze medal in Barcelona in 1992, and in 1996 the Olympic Games in Atlanta, and Mayweather also won in 1996. So both bronze medalists. It's pretty cool how they're very similar, even back in the amateur days. All right, guys, let's move on to another fighter, and he is none other than Paul Spadafora. Just a few quick things about Paul. He was, also known as the Pittsburgh Kid. He was a very skilled boxer. He had really great movement. He wasn't a flashy guy. He wasn't like the most athletic, but he was a very good boxer. Just a pure boxer with really good effective movement. He came at you from different angles. He created openings that you would never think that he could, but he made it happen, which was really helpful against very solid defensive fighters. Because when you fight a defensive fighter, if you're coming at that guy the same way, not changing anything up, you're not going to have a lot of success. But Spadafora, his movement, his ring intelligence, and his ability to create openings, helped him against very tight defensive fighters. He had good combination punching also. He had very, very quick hands, and also he knew exactly where he needed to be, and he knew exactly where he needed to end up. After he would lay his offense on his opponents. So pretty much he knew how to hit, not get hit, and then hit again. And something else I noticed about him, even being a pure boxer, as good as he is, he was very, very good at fighting on the inside. Going toe to toe, and he chose to fight on the inside when he wanted to. It's not that he was stuck in and he couldn't get out of a situation where he was against the ropes or in the corner. No, he actually liked to to fight on the inside because he knew he could do it. His slick, he had solid defense, and it was slick enough to where he could avoid a lot of punches and avoid punishment. So he didn't take too many punches, which allowed him to get in and fight on the inside very well. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just a quick summary of Paul. But let's go ahead and move on to the stats, side by side comparison with him and Mayweather. As you can see in the top, Paul Spadafora, he was the IBF 135 pound champion. He was the IBF lightweight champion from 1999 till 2003. Floyd Mayweather was the WBC lightweight champion from 2002 till 2003. Spadafora had 8 title defenses. His record was 7 in title defenses. His record was 7-0-1 with 1 knockout. Floyd Mayweather had 3 title defenses, and his record in title defenses was 3-0 with 1 knockout. The combined wins of the opponents, as you can see, for Paul Spadafora, was 245 wins. The combined opponents' losses was 22, which equal to a 91% win ratio. Now let's move on to Mayweather's side. His opponent's combined wins was 112. Opponent's losses was 8, which equal to a 93% win ratio. Now let's move on to the next stat. Notable fights. Notable fight for Spadafora was, of course, like I mentioned earlier, Leonard Dorin, who was 21-0 with 7 knockouts. And that was to defend his IBF title and unify his IBF title with Dorin's WBA title. Let's move on to Mayweather's side. His notable fight was the rematch with Jose Luis Castillo, who was 45-5 with 42 knockouts, and that was to defend his WBC title. Let's move on to another stat. Win to capture title. For Spadafora, he defeated Israel Cardona, who was 31-2 with 23 knockouts. For the vacant IBF title, who was left vacant by the previous champ, Sugar Shane Mosley, but he moved up, so the title was vacant, and he fought Israel Cardona and beat him to become the new champ. Let's move on to Mayweather's side. He, of course, faced Jose Luis Castillo, who was 45-4-1 with 42 knockouts, coming into, as the champion. And their record as lightweights: Paul Spadafora was 36-1 with 15 knockouts. Floyd Mayweather's record was 31-0 with 21 knockouts. As you can see, these guys were both Dorin and Spadafora and Mayweather had a lot of similarities, very close, very close as far as stats and the opposition they faced and the champions they defeated to become champ. They weren't. They were the top 3 guys. If they didn't have belts, it didn't matter. Let's just say all 3 of these guys, Mayweather, Spadafora, and Dorin, didn't have belts at that time. They would still be considered the top 3 guys because that, and they deserve to be because they were really good in that division. It's just too bad that that Mayweather didn't fight these guys. I'm sure it would have been, great fights, between all 3 of them. Of course, Spadafora and Dorin fought each other, which was a hell of a fight, which ended in a draw, and it was a really good, entertaining fight. It's on YouTube if you can, you want to check it out. But hey, you guys, if you notice, I'm not bashing Mayweather just because the title says ducked, question mark business, question mark. I'm not really accusing him of ducking these guys. I'm just simply stating that these were the champions at the time while he was champ, but yet these fights didn't happen. Now you could be the judge whether he ducked, whether just things didn't work out. But trust me, HBO wanted to make this the fight with Spadafora versus Mayweather and Dorin versus Mayweather because it was gonna be a solid pay-per-view bouts with these guys. But Mayweather wanted it was reported that Mayweather wanted $3 million. He wanted $3 million, and he was only going to, and Spadafora and Dorin were only going to get 250,000. So what ended up happening was Dorin and Spadafora fought. You know, they it was a 50-50 split. You know, they split $1 million, and they both, you know, they got 500,000 each, because, you know, it was fair. You know, Spadafora, I mean, to take less money like that when he was a champion, you know, before, and he had been champion for a while, making a lot of title defenses. He had a huge fan base. Of course, mostly in his hometown, but he brought in a lot of people, and he just felt. I mean, I'm pretty sure that those guys felt like they were gonna get ripped off. You know, Mayweather's known for, you know, he wants to make the most money, and, you know, guys want, and his opponents are gonna make a lot less. But back then, you know, back in the early 2000s, I mean, Mayweather was good and recognized, but he wasn't, not even close to a household name, or even close to the success as far as star power, as far as, you know, pay-per-view star, like he is today. Back then, he was not even close. But hey, that's it for today's video. I want to thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for visiting my channel. If you have not subscribed yet, go ahead and push the subscribe button to get more videos. And yeah, that's it for today. So until next time, see you later.